Hello everyone, myself Suzain. Under the guidance of D.V. Ramana, I am going to present a seminar on IP spoofing. Now let us learn by starting about the brief introduction to the following contents on IP spoofing. The first as follows: Introduction, what is IP spoofing, how IP spoofing works, why IP spoofing is used, spoofing attacks, defense against IP spoofing attacks, advantages and disadvantages. Now, let us go through a brief introduction about IP spoofing. IP spoofing. An attacker gains an unauthorized access to the computer or a network by making it appear that a malicious message has come from a trusted machine by spoofing the IP address of that machine. Criminals have long employed the tactic of masking their true identity from disguises to aliases to caller ID blockings. Here, we will examine some of the concepts of IP spoofing as what it is, why it is possible, how it works, what it is used for, and how to defend against it. Now let us start with what is IP spoofing. Commonly speaking of spoofing, it refers to imitating or exaggerating their characteristic features. As the word defines, IP spoofing refers to creation of IP packets which have a modified source address in order to either hide the identity of the sender or to imitate another computer system or both. What is an IP? IP address is the address that reveals the identity of your internet service provider and your personal internet connection. Here, we will examine some of the concepts of IP spoofing as how an IP spoofing works. We are aware of the fact that IP is used for sending and receiving the data on the internet and the systems that are connected to the network. Each packet of information sent is identified by its IP address. Now, let us demonstrate on how the IP spoofing works. In the IP spoofing, there is the attacker, the host, and the victim. When the host sends the data packets through the network to the receiver during the process, the attacker tries to intervene the process by spoofing the host IP address and starts communicating with the receiver. And when the receiver responds to that information that is sent by the attacker, it will be sent to the fake IP address unless the attacker tends to redirect the information to the original IP address. In short, the attacker fakes itself as the host in order to gain the information from the victim or the receiver. Now, let us learn about why they are used. Although spoofing is considered to be the criminal activity where the hackers use this method so that they are not caught under the violation of denial of services. They also use this as a method to corrupt the entire network by overloading the system together with massive amount of information, which is also called as DOS attacks. Speaking of the attacks, the spoofing has some of the common attacks which are discussed here. They are man-in-the-middle attack, denial of service attack, non-blind spoofing, and blind spoofing. Now let us know briefly about these attacks. First, we'll start with the man-in-the-middle attack. This is the type of attack where the intruder intercepts the communication transmitting between the two paths. The attacker sniffs the packets sent without the awareness of the machine and modifies them. The next is denial of service. In a short amount of time, the attacker tries to flood the victim by sending thousands of requests to prolong the attack. They spoof the IP address of the victim, which makes difficult to trace the attacker. Non-blind attack. Victim and attacker share the same subnet. Attacker corrupts the data stream of a network connection. Blind spoofing. The attacker sends multiple packets to the targeted machine to get the segment number, which will be used to assemble the packets. Once the attacker gets to know the sequence number, he can inject the data into paths streams by falsifying the identity. This requires no authentication. In order to overcome these attacks, there are few defense methods which are used against IP spoofing attacks. They are authentication based on key exchange, access control list, filtering, configure router and switches, enable encryption, sessions on router. By authentication based on key exchange, something like between the machines on the network, something like IP security known as IPsec. Access control list. Access control list, they are used to deny the private addresses on your downstream interface. By filtering, we are able to filter both inbound and outbound traffic. And you can configure the router and switches as they support such configuration to reject the packets originating outside your local network that claim to be originating from within. Lastly, you can enable encryption sessions on routers so that the trusted hosts that are outside the network can securely communicate through your local host. So these are some of the defense against IP spoofing attacks. Now, let us move on to the advantages. The advantages of IP spoofing are multiple servers and transparent proxying. We'll learn about this one by one. First, what is multiple servers? Sometimes you want to change where packets heading into your network will go. Frequently, this is because you have only one IP address, but you want people to be able to get into the boxes behind the one with the real IP address. Transparent proxying. Sometimes you want to pretend that each packet which passes through your Linux box is destined for a program on the Linux box itself. This is used to make transparent proxies. A proxy is a program which stands between your network and the outside world, shuffling communication between the two. The transparent part is because your network won't even know it's talking to a proxy, unless of course the proxy doesn't work. So these are some of the advantages of IP spoofing. Now let us move on to the disadvantages of what are IP spoofing. The disadvantages are as follows: serial attack platform and blind to replies. What is this serial attack platforms? However, the attacker can still maintain anonymity by taking over a chain of attack hosts. The attacker attacks the target victim using a point host, the last host in the attack chain. Even if authorities learn the point host's identity, they might not be able to track the attack through the chain of attack hosts all the way back to the attacker's base host. Next is the blind to replies. A drawback to IP source address spoofing is that reply packet will go back to the spoofed IP address rather than to the attacker. This is fine for many types of attack packets. However, in the scanning attack, as we will see next, the attacker may need to see replies. In such cases, the attacker cannot use IP address spoofing. So, these are some of the disadvantages of the IP spoofing. Lastly, we come across the conclusion of the IP spoofing. The IP spoofing is less of a threat today due to the patches of the Unix operating system and the widespread use of random sequence receive numbering. Many security experts are predicting a shift from IP spoofing attacks to application-related spoofing, in which hackers can exploit a weakness in a particular service to send and information under false identities. As security professionals, we must remain current with the operating system that we use in our day-to-day activities. A steady stream of changes and new challenges is assured as the hacker community continues to seek out vulnerabilities and weaknesses in our systems and our networks. Hence, therefore, I conclude this seminar on IP spoofing. Thank you.